There's a painful mystery you've likely experienced. Feeling deeply desired by someone who remains mysteriously silent. His signals seem clear one moment, yet the next, he's distant, reserved, leaving you in a cloud of doubt and confusion. You ask yourself endlessly, did I misread his feelings? Am I not enough? Or is something deeper going on? His silence isn't just frustrating, it's emotionally exhausting, shaking your confidence and making you question everything you thought you knew about love. But what if his silence isn't rejection? What if the truth behind his quietness is more profound and more surprising than you ever imagined? Stoicism holds powerful insights into this emotional paradox, revealing why a man who deeply craves you may retreat into silence instead of stepping forward. In this video, you'll finally discover the hidden, often shocking truths behind his silence. Truths that can restore your clarity, confidence, and inner peace. But first, if you're ready to end the confusion, hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Comment below with the powerful phrase, "I choose clarity," and share your personal story. Today, you're about to gain insight that will forever change how you view his silence and yourself. Number 1. His silence doesn't mean he doesn't care, why he struggles to show emotion. Men and women often express feelings differently, not because they feel less deeply, but because society has shaped their emotional expression. Women naturally lean towards connection, sharing their thoughts openly and creating bonds through vulnerability. For many women, talking about emotions is both healing and comforting, a way to feel seen and understood. In contrast, men typically grow up hearing a different message, that expressing emotions makes them weak, vulnerable, or out of control. They're subtly trained from childhood to suppress feelings, hide vulnerabilities, and maintain a facade of strength at all costs. Imagine this common scenario. A man deeply craves someone, truly feeling drawn toward her emotionally and romantically. His heart aches for closeness and connection. Yet, instead of stepping forward confidently, openly admitting his feelings, he retreats into silence. He withdraws not because he lacks interest, but precisely because the intensity of his feelings triggers fear, uncertainty, and discomfort. Society has subtly trained him to view emotion as weakness, leaving him anxious about expressing vulnerability. Rather than risk rejection or humiliation, silence becomes his protective armor, his shield against appearing weak. From childhood, boys often hear phrases like, "man up," or "real men don't cry." These cultural messages echo throughout their adult lives, conditioning them to suppress authentic emotions. Stoicism, ironically misunderstood, can amplify this confusion. The popular misinterpretation of Stoicism as emotional detachment has misled many men into believing that showing vulnerability or desire openly is a loss of control. Yet genuine Stoic wisdom never advocates suppressing emotions entirely, only managing and understanding them clearly. Historically, even legendary Stoics like Marcus Aurelius openly expressed deep feelings through thoughtful reflections. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote personal meditations exploring vulnerability and honest emotional reflection. Yet modern misconceptions have twisted his teachings, pushing men towards silence rather than authenticity. In everyday life, you've likely seen this firsthand. Perhaps you've noticed a man who genuinely cares for someone, yet remains painfully silent, sending mixed signals. His silence can appear indifferent, even cruel. Yet beneath the surface, he wrestles with intense emotions he's terrified to express. Afraid of rejection, appearing weak, or losing respect, he chooses silence over vulnerability. To break this harmful cycle, it's crucial for men, and those who care about them, to understand that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. True Stoicism never asks us to deny or suppress our feelings. Instead, it teaches us to recognize, accept, and responsibly communicate them. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote privately, reflecting openly on his inner turmoil and vulnerability. His lesson to us isn't suppression, but honest self-reflection and courageous emotional expression. Ultimately, understanding this dynamic shifts your perception profoundly. Silence isn't always rejection. It's often a hidden cry for connection, a desire buried under fear of vulnerability. Recognizing this truth helps foster empathy, clarity, and better communication. So, ask yourself honestly today, have you misjudged someone's silence as rejection? Or if you're the one trapped by silence, have you confused emotional honesty with weakness? Realize that true strength lies not in withholding your heart, but in bravely expressing it. Number 2. Why men remain silent, even when they deeply crave a woman. It's one of life's greatest ironies. A man can passionately desire a woman, yet remain painfully silent, leaving her confused, frustrated, and questioning her own worth. Why does someone who feels such intense attraction choose silence instead of connection? The reasons are often hidden, rooted deeply within the complicated fabric of his psychology and upbringing. First, let's understand clearly, silence isn't always a rejection. Many men silently carry profound emotions because they've been taught from childhood that expressing vulnerability makes them appear weak or inadequate. Society whispers in their ears, "Real men stay strong," teaching them early on to suppress emotions, hide their feelings, and guard their hearts at all costs. When these men experience intense attraction, they're confronted by powerful feelings they don't fully understand. Instead of openly expressing them, they instinctively retreat into silence, believing it safer to keep their emotions hidden rather than risk appearing needy or losing control. Think of the quiet man in your office, silently observing the woman he deeply admires. Despite his strong desire, he rarely initiates conversations or boldly expresses interest. You might interpret this as a lack of interest, indifference, or even arrogance. But beneath that silent facade lies genuine longing, a powerful desire masked by his fears. He silently wonders, what if I reveal my true feelings and she rejects me? What if I appear weak or overly emotional? This fear, shaped by years of conditioning, locks him into inaction, even though every fiber of his being wants to reach out and connect. Another reason for men's silence is the profound fear of vulnerability itself. When emotions run deeply, expressing them feels risky, almost dangerous. Imagine the vulnerability required to openly admit affection, desire, or love. To men raised in cultures celebrating strength and independence, such emotional openness feels unbearably exposed. To avoid rejection, embarrassment, or perceived humiliation, he chooses the safety of silence, even though this silence ironically keeps him isolated from the connection he desires most. There's also the Stoic misinterpretation some men unknowingly embrace. Many mistakenly view Stoicism as complete emotional detachment, believing that suppressing emotions demonstrates strength and virtue. However, authentic Stoicism actually teaches careful acknowledgement, not suppression of emotion. Marcus Aurelius himself said clearly, "Impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, true Stoic strength lies in acknowledging one's feelings honestly and courageously addressing them, not hiding silently in avoidance. Moreover, silence can be an attempt at self-control. The intensity of a man's desire might genuinely scare him. He fears losing his composure, being overwhelmed by emotions he cannot manage. Rather than expressing himself openly and risking losing control, he withdraws into silence, hoping distance will help him maintain composure. Unfortunately, this only reinforces misunderstanding, distancing him further from the very connection he deeply desires. Finally, men sometimes remain silent because they believe their feelings are unreciprocated. Misreading signals, he assumes his affection is one-sided. In his mind, silence becomes a dignified retreat, protecting both his pride and hers. Unfortunately, this noble intention often leads to unnecessary misunderstandings and missed connections. If you're experiencing a man's confusing silence right now, pause and reconsider carefully. Ask yourself, is his silence truly indifference, or a mask hiding deeper feelings he's afraid to share openly? Could he be trapped by the very conditioning that trained him to equate emotional expression with weakness? By understanding this hidden truth, you cultivate compassion and clarity. Remember, silence isn't necessarily rejection. It often reveals unspoken depth, unexpressed yearning, and the quiet courage needed to eventually step forward and speak. Number 3, the heavy shadow of his past. Understanding the pain behind his silence. It's confusing, isn't it? You're feeling that quiet ache, wondering why a man who clearly desires you remains silent, distant, seemingly unreachable. But his silence may not mean he doesn't care. It often signals hidden wounds from his past. These wounds silently shape his actions, keeping him trapped behind invisible walls built from past hurt. You might find yourself confused, wondering why someone who clearly has feelings for you remains distant, leaving you questioning your worth, attractiveness, or even whether you're imagining his feelings altogether. Consider this scenario. There's Jake, a man who's genuine, caring, and thoughtful, the kind of man you've always hoped would open his heart to you. Long before he met you, Jake trusted openly and fearlessly. He wore his heart on his sleeve, fully believing in love's beauty and goodness. Then came the betrayal. Someone he trusted deeply wounded him, leaving scars so painful he vowed never again to expose himself to such suffering. Now, whenever Jake begins to feel those familiar, powerful emotions toward you, his past trauma emerges as an intense reminder, whispering that vulnerability is too risky, too painful to bear again. So he retreats into silence, not because he doesn't crave you deeply, but precisely because he does. This leaves you feeling lost and hurt, struggling to understand why the connection feels real but remains unspoken. You might wonder if it's something about you that makes him hesitate. But here's the truth. His silence isn't about your inadequacy, it's about his own unresolved fears and wounds. Stoicism gently provides wisdom here, offering a powerful insight from Seneca. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. For him, past pain still holds power because he fears reliving it. His silence is a form of emotional self-defense, one rooted deeply in past experiences he hasn't yet overcome. Your role isn't to fix him, but rather to clearly understand this reality. His silence doesn't reflect your value or desirability. Understanding this Stoic wisdom helps you remain emotionally grounded and compassionate. Remember, the emotional walls he's built can only crumble when he's ready to face his past. Until then, you can offer patience and clarity, recognizing his silence as a reflection of his inner battles, not your shortcomings. In embracing this truth, you gain strength and clarity, allowing yourself peace in knowing his silence isn't rejection. It's simply evidence of the wounds he's not yet ready to face. Number 4. Fear of losing freedom. Why he chooses silence, even though he wants you to. You felt the confusion clearly. He's giving you mixed signals, close one moment, distant the next, leaving you constantly second-guessing yourself. You wonder, if he truly desires me, why does he remain silent? Why does he keep pulling away? The painful truth is that for many men, stepping closer into love feels like stepping away from their freedom. Imagine Alex, a charming, independent man whose life revolves around his passions, personal adventures, and freedom. He craves deep emotional connection, and when he meets you, he genuinely feels that longing. Yet, just as he prepares to move closer, anxiety quietly whispers in his ear. If you commit, you'll lose everything you've built, your freedom, your independence, your very identity. His silence isn't rejection. It's hesitation born from fear, the fear that love might mean sacrificing everything he's carefully built. From your perspective, this silence is confusing, frustrating, even painful. You're left wondering if it's your fault, questioning your worth, and doubting your instincts. But his silence isn't about you. It's about his fear of losing something deeply important to him, his sense of self. Stoicism sheds clear light on this conflict. Epictetus wisely stated, "Freedom is the only worthy goal." But freedom comes when you understand what truly matters. The real question for Alex, and the many men like him, isn't whether he must choose love or freedom, but rather how to embrace both authentically. Love doesn't have to mean sacrificing independence. Instead, a healthy relationship can enhance freedom by creating a supportive space for both individuals to thrive. If you're experiencing this confusion, remember clearly, his silence doesn't necessarily mean rejection or lack of desire. It's often a sign he's battling internal fears about losing himself within love. Understanding this can help you approach the situation with compassion and clarity, without sacrificing your own emotional peace. Ultimately, the path forward lies in recognizing that love, done right, is never a cage, it's a shared freedom. Number 5. Trained in silence. How family upbringing shapes emotional expression. Often, the silence you experience in a relationship isn't simply about lack of interest or affection. Instead, it's rooted deeply in the ways many people have been taught, since childhood, to handle, or rather hide, their emotions. In some households, especially those where rigid, traditional ideas of strength dominate, emotional openness isn't encouraged, it's actively discouraged. Expressions of tenderness, vulnerability, or even simple affection can be harshly criticized, dismissed, or ridiculed. Imagine a child growing up in such a household, constantly reminded that emotional expression is inappropriate or weak. Every attempt to share feelings or show vulnerability is met with judgment or rejection. Stop being emotional. Toughen up. Don't embarrass yourself. Over time, this repeated message creates a habit of silence, teaching that it's safer to bury emotions rather than risk exposure. Fast forward into adulthood. That child, now grown, deeply craves intimacy and connection, but struggles profoundly to express these feelings openly. When attraction arises, silence often becomes their default reaction, not because they don't care deeply, but precisely because they do. Silence feels safer than risking the rejection or shame they've learned to associate with emotional honesty. Perhaps you've encountered this in your own relationships. You feel a powerful connection with someone who seems interested, yet consistently holds back. Their silence feels confusing, even hurtful. You question yourself, wondering if you've misread the signs. Meanwhile, they are quietly battling internal struggles, desperately wanting to speak but paralyzed by ingrained fears. Stoicism offers valuable guidance here, reminding us to approach others with compassion and patience. Marcus Aurelius taught that understanding another's behavior requires recognizing the unseen struggles they carry. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Rather than immediately interpreting silence as rejection, pause and consider what emotional wounds might be influencing the other person's inability to express their true feelings. Remember clearly, emotional silence doesn't always indicate lack of care or affection. Often, it's simply evidence of someone's lifelong training to avoid vulnerability at all costs. Recognizing this truth brings empathy and patience into relationships, opening the possibility for genuine, mutual understanding and healing. Number 6. The silent game. When emotional chess takes over him, silence can feel maddening, can't it? You sit there, staring at your phone screen, desperately wondering why that message hasn't arrived. Or perhaps you're the one who's intentionally delayed responding, hoping to ignite curiosity or anxiety in someone else's heart. Welcome to the peculiar and perplexing world of the silent game, better known as the infamous tactic of emotional chess. It's a delicate dance. One misstep, and someone might topple the emotional chessboard entirely. Imagine Mike and Sarah, two people clearly attracted to each other. After a perfect date filled with laughter and connection, both are eager, secretly checking their phones every few minutes afterward. Yet both decide to hold back deliberately, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Hours turn into days, each growing increasingly frustrated yet stubbornly committed to their silent strategy. Eventually, doubt creeps in, insecurities rise, and both start questioning the reality of the chemistry they once felt vividly. Ironically, their mutual desire for connection leads them into emotional stalemate, turning love into a bizarre game of emotional chess. This is the paradox of the silent game, also known as the infamous push and pull strategy. People mistakenly think withholding attention or affection will intensify attraction. And to some extent, psychological studies indeed confirm this troubling truth. Uncertainty can enhance attraction temporarily. But what these strategic players fail to realize is that while silence might briefly ignite curiosity, it often leads to confusion, anxiety, and eventually disconnection. The emotional chess game quickly turns exhausting rather than exciting. Stoicism sharply warns against this manipulative tactic. Epictetus wisely stated, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish." In other words, genuine connection demands vulnerability, honesty, and courage, not clever emotional manipulation. Stoicism encourages emotional authenticity rather than strategic silence. It teaches clearly that games played with emotions inevitably lead to emptiness, not intimacy. Picture a humorous yet revealing analogy. Imagine you're extremely thirsty, and there's a delicious-looking drink right in front of you. Instead of reaching for it, you decide, "Nope, I'll wait. Maybe it'll come closer." Meanwhile, the drink, representing affection and connection, sits untouched, both parties stubbornly waiting while dehydration sets in. Ridiculous, isn't it? Yet that's exactly what emotional silence does. It starves both people involved, even though the nourishment they crave sits within reach. True attraction isn't born from calculated silence, but from genuine openness, sincerity, and emotional bravery. Stoicism reminds us clearly of this simple truth. Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily, if it is right, do it. If it is true, say it. Games, silence, and emotional chess might feel clever momentarily, but ultimately they betray the core virtue Stoicism celebrates: authenticity. So ask yourself honestly right now, have you been playing the silent game, waiting for someone else to blink first? Or has someone else's silence left you anxious, unsure, questioning your worth? Recognize clearly that lasting love and attraction don't emerge from calculated moves. They blossom in honesty, transparency, and courage. End the silent game today. Choose openness, clarity, and genuine connection instead. Because real love and true intimacy never arise from carefully calculated silence, but from the courageous decision to speak your heart. Number 7. Afraid of losing what's already good. Why friendship holds him back. One of the most confusing reasons behind someone's silence, especially when there's clear attraction, is the fear of losing a cherished friendship. Imagine this scenario. Two close friends, Lucas and Sophie, share countless memories, laughing over inside jokes, comforting each other during difficult times, always dependable, always supportive. Over time, feelings grow deeper. Lucas begins to see Sophie not just as a friend, but as someone he deeply desires, respects, and truly admires. Yet, despite these powerful emotions, he chooses silence. Why would someone risk losing what could be a perfect relationship? Because in Lucas's mind, stepping forward with romantic intentions feels dangerously risky. The friendship they've built together feels fragile, precious, like a delicate glass sculpture he fears could shatter into pieces if he admits his feelings. The idea of rejection or awkwardness feels devastating, a threat too real to ignore. Lucas reasons, I'd rather stay silent and keep her friendship forever than confess and lose everything. But from Sophie's viewpoint, Lucas's silence is confusing, frustrating, even hurtful. She senses a deeper attraction, yet his silence leaves her questioning everything. She wonders if she's imagining signals, misreading his warmth, or missing something obvious. Lucas's silence unintentionally creates uncertainty, pain, and confusion, all rooted in his genuine fear of destroying something beautiful, something both have invested deeply in. This isn't just Lucas and Sophie's story. It's a scenario faced by countless friends whose silence masks hidden, powerful feelings. Stoicism can shed helpful insights here. Marcus Aurelius wisely counseled, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His wisdom encourages emotional bravery. The truth is, silence born from fear keeps friendship trapped in an uncomfortable limbo, creating quiet tension instead of intimacy. Stoicism guides us toward clarity and courage, teaching us that facing uncomfortable truths openly, with calm and acceptance, is always superior to silent avoidance. If you're experiencing such confusion now, consider this carefully. Friendship built on honest expression can withstand even the toughest truths. Genuine connections evolve through honesty and transparency, not silence and hidden fears. Rather than silently fearing rejection, remember clearly, true friends honor and respect vulnerability, even when the outcome is uncertain. Therefore, if the silence you're experiencing stems from fear of risking friendship, know this clearly. Genuine bonds grow stronger, not weaker, when they're tested by authenticity. Choose to courageously embrace honesty over silence. Because ultimately, the beauty and strength of real friendship are revealed precisely in its ability to weather emotional truths, rather than be broken by them. Number 8. He thinks you don't feel the same way. Why his silence is rooted in self-doubt. You've probably asked yourself countless times why he stays quiet when all the signs seem to indicate he genuinely desires you. His silence might feel frustrating, even painful, leaving you to question your own perception. Is it possible you're misreading his feelings? Or worse, is something wrong with you? Yet, consider this possibility carefully. His silence might stem not from indifference, but from deep insecurity. Perhaps he believes his feelings for you aren't mutual, that he's alone in this attraction and confessing would only burden or embarrass you. He's convinced himself that revealing his emotions could damage your existing connection, making things awkward or strained. Rather than risk rejection, humiliation, or ruining something valuable, he retreats into silence. Imagine Josh and Claire, colleagues who've grown close over months of working together. Claire feels undeniable chemistry, sensing Josh's frequent, quiet glances and gentle gestures as evidence he shares her feelings. Yet Josh remains silent. Claire feels increasingly confused, doubting her instincts. The truth Claire doesn't see is that Josh's silence is rooted in self-doubt, quietly whispering to him, "Claire probably sees me only as a friend. Expressing my feelings could ruin everything." Thus, Josh remains silent, trapped not by lack of desire, but by his fear of rejection. Understanding this hidden truth can shift your perspective profoundly. Stoicism teaches valuable lessons here. Marcus Aurelius wisely counseled, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." His silence isn't proof of your unworthiness or his lack of interest, it's simply a reflection of his inner uncertainty and fear. Therefore, if you're wondering why he's silent despite seeming clearly interested, remind yourself gently, his hesitation might be born from insecurity, not indifference. Clearly signaling your openness, warmth, and receptivity may help reassure him, offering him the confidence to break his silence and share his genuine feelings. Ultimately, his silence doesn't diminish your value or your attractiveness. It simply reveals his inner struggle, quietly waiting for reassurance that his heart's vulnerability will be met with kindness rather than rejection. Number 9. When ambition speaks louder than words, his silence due to personal priorities. Sometimes silence doesn't mean lack of affection. It means his world is spinning faster than he can manage. When someone appears distant or detached, it's easy to take it personally, wondering if you've misjudged his feelings or imagining that you did something wrong. But the reality is often simpler yet more painful. He deeply desires you, but his ambitions, responsibilities, and obligations currently speak louder than his heart. Consider Daniel, ambitious and driven by a clear vision for his future. Recently, he earned a promotion at work, a step he's worked toward tirelessly. Yet with this promotion comes greater responsibility, long hours, increased pressure, and high expectations. Though Daniel cares deeply for Sophia, the woman who's captured his heart, his mind becomes consumed with professional commitments and overwhelming demands. Each night, after exhausting days filled with meetings and stress, Daniel thinks about contacting Sophia but postpones reaching out. He convinces himself he'll do it tomorrow or next week or once things settle down. Before long, silence becomes his unintended response, not because he cares less, but because he's overwhelmed by life's demands. From Sophia's perspective, this silence can feel confusing, hurtful, even personal. She wonders, does he even care about me anymore? Has he lost interest? But Daniel's silence isn't about lack of affection or desire. Rather, it's evidence of his internal conflict, balancing deep feelings with equally powerful ambitions, responsibilities, and pressures. Stoicism provides clarity in such situations. Epictetus famously said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This Stoic wisdom highlights a critical truth. Life often demands choosing priorities clearly and consciously. Sometimes, personal ambitions or responsibilities must temporarily come first, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. If you're experiencing someone's silence due to personal priorities, remind yourself gently, it doesn't necessarily mean rejection or loss of interest. Instead, recognize clearly the weight they're carrying, ambitions, goals, duties that temporarily demand their full attention. Your understanding and patience during this challenging time can deepen the respect and trust between you both, laying the groundwork for a stronger, healthier bond in the future. Ultimately, silence driven by ambition or responsibility isn't a permanent verdict on your worth. It's simply a momentary reality, reflecting their internal battle to balance life's demands with their sincere desire for emotional connection. Number 10. Misinterpreting his silence, the hidden mistake that pushes him away. When a man goes silent, confusion quickly takes hold. You start questioning everything, your attractiveness, your worth, even the authenticity of his feelings. Yet many react to this painful silence in exactly the wrong way, often unintentionally pushing him further away instead of drawing him closer. A common scenario plays out like this. He suddenly goes silent, pulling back communication without explanation. Confused and hurt, the immediate reaction is to chase, reach out repeatedly, demand answers, or seek reassurance. You might find yourself texting multiple times, pressing him to open up, or asking why he's acting distant. Your intentions are understandable, you're simply seeking clarity, but from his perspective, these actions feel overwhelming. Instead of clarity, he senses pressure, obligation, or expectation. Suddenly, what began as genuine attraction turns into an uncomfortable situation he instinctively retreats from. Another common misstep is overanalyzing every action, silence, or message, or lack thereof. You might replay conversations in your mind, endlessly dissecting small details or potential missteps, convinced that there must be a hidden reason for his withdrawal. While analysis feels like it might offer clarity, in reality it only intensifies anxiety, insecurity, and uncertainty, often leading you to conclusions that are disconnected from reality. For example, consider Anna and Ryan. Ryan suddenly stops texting for a few days, consumed with personal responsibilities. Anna's initial confusion quickly spirals into worry and self-doubt. She begins reaching out repeatedly, asking if something is wrong or if he's lost interest. When he doesn't immediately respond, Anna starts questioning herself. Am I not good enough? Or did I say something wrong? Ryan, sensing Anna's anxiety and urgency, feels pressured. Rather than reassuring him, her anxiety makes him retreat further, seeking emotional distance to relieve the discomfort her panic creates. Why does this happen? Psychologically, men tend to respond negatively to pressure or demands for emotional validation. When faced with anxiety, desperation, or emotional intensity, many instinctively pull away, not because they care less, but because the intensity feels overwhelming or suffocating. Silence, rather than drawing them closer, causes them to emotionally shut down or withdraw even further. Stoicism teaches an essential lesson here. Marcus Aurelius advised, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Instead of chasing, analyzing, or allowing anxiety to consume you, Stoicism encourages emotional calmness and clarity. Remember clearly, his silence doesn't define your value or worth. Maintaining your emotional stability, rather than desperately seeking reassurance, paradoxically makes you more attractive, reassuring him that your happiness doesn't depend solely on his validation. Therefore, if you're experiencing painful silence right now, resist the impulse to chase or overanalyze. Instead, maintain emotional clarity, calm, and self-respect. Remember, genuine attraction and healthy connection flourish in freedom, not desperation. Your calm confidence will reassure him far more effectively than anxious pursuit ever could. Number 11. How to gracefully handle his silence. The Stoic path to power and respect. When faced with a man's silence, your first instinct might be anxiety, panic, or desperate attempts to reconnect. It's completely understandable. You care deeply and crave clarity. Yet the true solution lies in doing exactly the opposite. Instead of chasing or questioning your worth, it's essential to remain grounded, confident, and unaffected by his withdrawal. Here's why this approach works powerfully. Men are naturally drawn toward someone whose sense of worth remains unshaken, regardless of their actions. If his silence can shake your confidence, he subconsciously senses that your emotional state depends on his attention or validation. This pressure, whether intentional or not, can make him feel trapped, obligated, or overwhelmed. Ironically, the harder you push, the further he retreats. Instead, picture Sarah. She's been dating Matt, who suddenly becomes quiet and distant without explanation. Instead of panicking, Sarah remains calm, continues to enjoy her life fully, and maintains her emotional stability. She doesn't bombard Matt with questions or demands explanations. Instead, she demonstrates inner confidence and clarity, subtly conveying, I value our connection, but my happiness isn't dependent on your validation. This grounded response profoundly shifts Matt's perception. Sarah's calm strength not only maintains her emotional peace, but also naturally draws Matt back, igniting his respect and curiosity. Her inner strength makes her far more attractive because she doesn't allow his silence to shake her confidence. Rather than pushing him further away, her calm stability draws him closer naturally, effortlessly. This strategy aligns beautifully with Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a person comes to a calm mind, the closer they are to strength." Your emotional power doesn't lie in chasing someone who withdraws. It lies in clearly knowing your worth, living your life fully, and remaining emotionally balanced regardless of someone else's actions. So clearly, when you face his silence, don't panic, chase, or compromise your value. Instead, calmly remind yourself of your own worth, remain stable, confident, and engaged fully in your own life. By doing this, you transform silence from something that shakes your self-esteem into something that clearly reveals your inner strength and attractiveness. Ultimately, men don't want to feel chased or pressured. They crave the powerful allure of someone whose emotional stability doesn't depend on them. Be that person. Let your confidence, calmness, and clarity naturally draw him back toward you. Not out of need, but because you've shown you're genuinely worth pursuing. Number 12. The paradox of attraction. Why men withdraw when their feelings intensify. Have you ever wondered why a man who clearly desires you suddenly becomes distant or silent, leaving you puzzled, anxious, and questioning yourself? This strange paradox, where attraction leads to withdrawal, is more common than you might think. It arises from a fundamental truth of human psychology. People often step back when confronted with powerful emotions they can't fully understand or control. Picture Liam, who begins developing deep feelings for Emma. As his emotions intensify, Liam grows increasingly uncertain. He begins to wonder if these feelings are real, lasting, or just fleeting passion. Instead of openly communicating, Liam instinctively pulls away, testing not only his own emotions, but also Emma's reaction. If Emma panics, chases, or demands reassurance, Liam might unconsciously lose attraction, feeling overwhelmed by pressure rather than drawn closer by affection. Yet imagine another scenario. Emma remains confident, calm, and emotionally stable when Liam withdraws. She continues pursuing her passions, nurturing friendships, and living her life fully, even amid his silence. This response profoundly influences Liam. Her inner stability and independence fascinate him. Instead of pushing him further away, Emma's calm self-assurance draws Liam back, sparking renewed curiosity and desire. This paradox perfectly aligns with a timeless Stoic insight. Epictetus wisely taught, "Freedom is the only worthy goal." The freedom to be unaffected by others' behaviors is the ultimate power. Your emotional independence is not only empowering for you, it's irresistibly attractive to others. Men don't want to feel responsible for your happiness. Rather, they're deeply drawn to someone who's happy, fulfilled, and complete independently of them. Number 13. Confidence, the secret key to natural attraction. One of the most damaging mistakes in love is placing your sense of worth entirely in someone else's hands, allowing their silence or withdrawal to define your value. Many people mistakenly believe their worth hinges upon how their partner treats or responds to them. When he goes silent, doubt creeps in. Am I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? Yet, true attraction operates differently. Genuine attraction is rooted in confidence, the ability to see your own worth clearly, independently of external validation. Think of someone who radiates natural confidence, unaffected by the ups and downs of someone else's attention. She doesn't need constant reassurance or validation to feel worthy. Instead, she recognizes her own value clearly, confidently pursuing her own passions, hobbies, and dreams. Consider Olivia. When the man she's seeing suddenly withdraws or becomes silent, Olivia doesn't panic, chase, or demand attention. Instead, she remains calm, continuing to enjoy her life fully, her career, friends, interests, regardless of his temporary absence. Ironically, her confidence and independence amplify her attractiveness, drawing him back toward her naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully. Stoicism reinforces this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "Your happiness depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Genuine self-confidence arises when you acknowledge your inherent value without depending on external validation. Your strength becomes your most attractive quality, magnetic and irresistible. If you find yourself anxious during someone's silence, remember clearly, true attraction doesn't emerge from neediness or desperation. It flourishes in confidence and independence. The more you maintain your sense of self-worth and emotional independence, the more naturally attractive and compelling you become. In short, don't allow another person's behavior to shake your confidence or define your value. Choose clearly to remain confident, stable, and fully engaged in your life. By doing so, you transform silence from something painful into a powerful reminder of your worth, drawing others back to you naturally and effortlessly. Conclusion. What to do when he goes silent? When he pulls away and silence fills the space between you, the confusion and anxiety can feel overwhelming, but pause and breathe. Do not panic, do not chase him. Instead, Recognize clearly that your reaction right now determines everything. Hold tightly to your confidence. Continue living your life fully and embrace your own happiness. Let natural distance awaken his desire, rather than diminishing your attractiveness. Stoicism teaches that your value does not depend on someone else's actions or approval. Marcus Aurelius reminds us powerfully, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Remember clearly, a truly confident, independent woman can never be easily forgotten or replaced. Your worth remains intact regardless of his silence. Live boldly, maintain your strength, and watch how quickly attraction returns, naturally and effortlessly. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this video resonated with you, hit like, share it with others who need clarity, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Comment below with the phrase, "I choose confidence," and share your personal stories. Together, let's empower each other to choose strength, clarity, and independence.